I was brewing coffee when my phone vibrated with a video message from Mrs. Beatrice Whitmore, my old neighbor. I hadn't heard from her in so many years, and seeing her name on my screen stirred up memories I thought I'd left behind. The message itself was brief. No pleasantries or explanations, just a single line. "I'm so sorry about my parents. I can't believe what I witnessed today." A knot formed in my stomach as I opened the video, which showed a church that I recognized instantly as Holy Martyrs Chapel, the place where they used to bring me for Christmas Eve Mass when I was a child. The camera panned in gradually on two people standing at the podium. My parents. My mother wore black lace and pearls, occasionally pretending to wipe away tears, while my father stood rigid and somber, his hands trembling as he read from a piece of paper. Behind them was a coffin, and beside that casket sat a large framed photograph of me, surrounded by flowers. I froze, unable to move, hearing my father's voice resonating from the phone. "She was always a difficult girl, but we cared for her. We truly did all we could," my father said. My eyes unfocused, my vision swimming, as it hit me that my father was reciting a eulogy, a memorial about me. "Though she departed from this life much too soon, we hope her spirit finally knows rest," my father continued. But I wasn't gone. I stood right there in my apartment, alive, inhaling, trembling. This couldn't possibly be happening. Over and over, I rewound the recording, replaying it countless times. Their faces remained blank, their voices edged with sorrow. Everything about them was steady, composed, almost rehearsed. My grip tightened on the kitchen counter as my hands shook uncontrollably. "What is happening?" I muttered into the empty room. "Why are Gerard and Marjorie DeVries doing this?" I hadn't spoken to my parents in years, not since they had abandoned me, disowned me, as if I were nothing but a blemish on their good name. But to go so far as to stage a funeral, to officially pronounce, I felt as if I were already gone. The longer I watched, the more the chills spread through me. My mother remarked about how heartbreaking my supposed accident had been, but there had never been any accident at all. My father spoke about my supposed final years spent alone. In reality, I had been working, living, and keeping myself afloat. They knew the truth, so why were they pretending otherwise? I carefully lowered myself into a seat, the phone still playing in my hand. The video finished with the camera sweeping over the Murs, distant relatives, friends of the family, and even Mrs. Lillian Marstow, my childhood piano teacher. Every one of them was present, dressed in mourning attire, all convinced I was truly gone. Not a single person, not even one, had made an effort to contact me. I replayed the footage to confirm that I hadn't imagined any of it. Yet the reality was plain. They hadn't simply erased me. They'd consigned me to a living grave. Right then, I understood one undeniable thing. This hadn't happened by accident. It was deliberate. But things weren't always like this at first. There was once a period in my life when I believed that family guaranteed safety and loyalty, but that comforting idea collapsed 4 years ago. On that day, I was cast out of my own life abruptly, as if I were unwanted debris hurriedly hidden away. The reality was, I hadn't stolen any money. It was my younger sister, Sabrina DeVries, always regarded as flawless, who had. My younger sister, forever the favored daughter who could do no wrong, siphoned off almost $63,000 from DeVries and Sons Mercantile, our family's business account. She acted carelessly, drawn to extravagance well beyond what she could actually pay for. When the figures stopped making sense and the financial records became disastrous, my parents decided they needed someone to blame, and I became the easy target. I can still hear the words my mother spat at me in the kitchen. "It is better to have one disgraced daughter than two." My father couldn't even meet my eyes when he declared, "You have disgraced us. You are no longer our child." By the next morning, I had left. No money, no explanations offered to anybody, nothing. There was just silence. When I tried to call, send messages, or mail letters, there was no response at all. My phone number ended up blocked, and when I tried reaching out to close family friends, they too abruptly ceased all communication. Gradually, people who had always welcomed me suddenly shut me out of their lives. I seemed to disappear, not only to them, but to everyone who had once been part of my world. Eventually, in my brokenness, I did what many others have done. I left. I relocated to Ireland, found work in a small cafe, changed my phone number, and learned how to live quietly. I kept away from posting online and rarely ever uttered my own name out loud. Yet, even then, somewhere deep inside, I still clung to hope. The hope that, someday, someone might reach out, check on me, or tell me all of this was just a misunderstanding. That moment never arrived. Instead, something far worse did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I attempted to reactivate my old email address, only to find that the process kept failing. When I finally got in touch with customer support, I was informed that my account was disabled after a notice was filed stating that I had died. At that point, my name appeared in their database as officially and thoroughly deceased in every way, both offline and online. They had not only cut ties with me, they had wiped out every trace of my existence. That night, sleep eluded me, with the video continuously replaying in my thoughts. Their voices, their insincere lamentations, my face displayed beside a coffin I'd never seen. It felt as if I was watching my own memorial, all while being alive, and I could tell there was something deeply wrong about the situation. This drove me to investigate further. My first step was to call my aunt, Loretta Wilcox, my mother's older sister. Even though it had been years since we last spoke, she was the one who used to secretly give me sweets during family gatherings. When I called, Loretta picked up on the second ring. "Hello, Aunt Loretta. It's me. It's Adeline." An uncomfortable silence followed. Then she abruptly disconnected the call. I made a second attempt, but this time she'd already blocked my number. After that, I reached out to the Wilcox siblings. One of them replied by sending just a thumbs-up emoji and nothing more. Another responded by asking if this was some sort of twisted prank. Nobody seemed willing to accept that it was really me, except one. My youngest cousin, Davy Wilcox, the one who always looked up to me as a child, replied to my text, sounding unsure. "Adeline, is it really you?" "Yes, I'm alive," I replied, but I needed to know exactly what everyone had been told. The message indicator on my screen hovered for ages before he finally said, "They told people I died in a car accident in Ireland 4 years ago." My heart lurched. Apparently they'd spun an entire narrative, claiming the crash happened while I was traveling, saying it was too late to repatriate the body. Cremation, closed casket. My grip faltered, and I nearly dropped my phone, because the truth was, there had never been a car accident. I'd never even bothered to buy a car while I was in Ireland. Something inside me broke, so I gathered every piece of paperwork available. My passport stamps, rental forms, immigration documents, knowing full well I'd never been in an accident and had never actually disappeared. Determined, I searched the National Registry Bureau's online records, and that's when I saw it. Adeline DeVries's date of death, August 11th cause, road accident status, deceased certificate ID ARF 91327. They falsified it. They officially declared me dead. I gazed at the display in shock, unable to move. This wasn't sorrow. This wasn't disbelief. This was a deliberate concealment. But what secret were they protecting that made them willing to erase me? I should have quit searching, but when you discover that Gerard and Marjorie DeVries have figuratively buried you, you need to understand the reason. I discovered the truth somewhere I hadn't checked in ages. Sabrina's Lumina feed. She had made her profile public again, and right there it was. A sparkling array of photos, white roses, bubbling champagne, an enormous diamond. Sabrina's marriage celebration. The entire family was present. Loretta Wilcox beaming as if she hadn't abandoned me. The Wilcox siblings making toasts. Even great-uncle August Reinhold, who resided in Finland and never attended family occasions. But I was absent. Not a single word, not a single mention, not even a hope that Adeline de Vries could have attended. The caption read, "It was as though I had vanished, as if I had never been a part of things, until I inspected one of the pictures from the reception more carefully. The image captured someone giving a toast, a speech underway. Her husband, Tobias Gresham, appeared with a broad smile, and beside him stood my father, Gerard de Vries, wineglass in hand, beaming as he talked into a microphone. Underneath the picture, the caption declared, 'To the one daughter who always brought us pride.' That was when it became obvious. Not merely missing, but replaced. Driven by curiosity, I checked the Wilcox de Vries Holdings register. After only a few clicks, I felt a chill as I realized what I'd found. The trust fund originally set aside for me by my grandparents, funds for college, a business, had all been moved to Sabrina de Vries, 8 months after I had died. The transfer was handled legally and discreetly, with no sign of public grief. She didn't grieve me. She gained from my absence. Looking at her happy face in the picture, the white dress shining in the sunlight, the truth finally struck me. My sister didn't just take my place. They had tried to erase me, but I'd had enough. If Gerard and Marjorie de Vries wished me gone, they were about to witness just how alive I truly was. The following day, I strode into a law office with a folder full of paperwork and determination burning inside me. Passport stamps, job contracts, tax forms, rental leases, flight itineraries, every document irrefutable and damning. Seated across from me, Emrys Chandler looked shocked. "Are you disputing your own death?" I pushed the falsified certificate toward him. "I am very much alive, but I fully intend to haunt them." Emrys blinked and nodded after a pause. "In that case, my first move is to file a fraud claim and request that the death declaration be overturned. It'll be a process." "There's no time for a process," I interrupted, "because I apparently have a memorial this Saturday." He glanced up, but I remained unshaken. Earlier in the day, I received a text from an unfamiliar number, just a single line. "They're holding a memorial." For me, the following Saturday at Holy Martyrs Chapel came with no identification, no context, but I recognized the chapel. I recognized the location. It existed, and so did my scheme. That evening, I gazed out my apartment window, the lights of Seattle sparkling beneath me like embers eager for fuel. They cloaked me in deception, suffocated me with silence, acted as though I had vanished. But this time, the spotlight was mine. Let them wail, let them sob, let them play their roles, and once the show began, I would deliver a funeral they would never forget. Holy Martyrs Chapel had never seemed so crowded. Vehicles packed the street in a somber procession. The massive doors of the chapel swung open briefly to admit mourners dressed in black, sobbing, murmuring, embracing each other as if disaster had struck them individually. I observed from the other side of the street, black jacket, dark glasses, still unseen. It all felt unreal, almost as if I was watching a stage play, starring a person who resembled me in every way, but whose inner life was entirely foreign to my own. Once the event started, the organ filled the space with a mournful, slow melody, and candles trembled beneath my photograph, the very same image that appeared on the fabricated obituary. I could recall the exact moment that picture was snapped. At that time, my smile had been truly genuine. My father took his place at the pulpit, his expression grave and his voice projected just enough for all to hear. She faced many challenges, but our love for her never wavered, he said. Although she became lost, our faith in her return never faded, and our prayers for her never ceased. My mother sat in the front row, gently pressing lace-edged handkerchiefs to her eyes in a way that looked methodical, as if she had rehearsed for this very day. Her cries broke through the silence in a way that seemed refined, precise, and exactly how one might expect. My younger sister stood beside her, tightly grasping her string of pearls, as if the necklace was the only thing keeping her together. Adeline de Vries may have been a difficult person, but she was still a part of my life, a fact I never stopped feeling. I wish I could have offered her a farewell, even if it was only a polite lie, carefully constructed and filled with sorrow. I inched closer to the doorway, just within earshot of what was happening inside. Father Julian Paget lifted his hand with a grave expression, blessing her departure with a wish for eternal peace. I released a measured breath, knowing the time hadn't come. The performance carried on, missing its central player. Let us all rise for a period of reflection. Father Julian's words reverberated throughout Holy Martyrs' Chapel, reminiscent of a theater's closing call. Every attendee stood up, heads lowered, eyelids drawn, and hands respectfully clasped over their chests, observing the silence. While everyone held their breath, I pressed my palm to the doors and swung them open. A piercing, intentional noise filled Holy Martyrs' Chapel as the pair of massive wooden doors creaked apart, resembling an ancient crypt splitting open. The frigid sunlight from outside flooded into Holy Martyrs' Chapel, flowing down the central aisle in a harsh beam of illumination. I moved forward, consciously and purposefully, each step landing on the marble with the emphatic click of a trigger being pulled. Click, click. The quiet shattered. Startled gasps broke out as a few people turned, then more followed, and soon whispers flared up everywhere. Is that? It can't be. A child's voice broke through the charged air. Mom, isn't that her? I removed my sunglasses, and the crowd's eyes locked onto mine, wide, shocked, and fearful. My mother blanched as she looked at me, her lips quivering. Then she dramatically collapsed in a well-practiced faint. Her body dropped as if she'd been preparing for that very moment. My father stood there with his mouth agape, his wineglass sliding from his grasp until it smashed against the pew. Sabrina! Sabrina! I called. She froze as we made eye contact. Her jaw tightened and she twisted her pearl necklace between her fingers. A half-full champagne flute slipped from her hands and spilled across her flawless white shoes. Father Julian Paget was speechless and stepped back in shock. Still, I continued walking ahead. Every eye inside Holy Martyrs' Chapel followed my movement, as if uncertain whether they were witnessing an apparition or the arrival of their own judgment, and perhaps I was both. I kept silent because I didn't have to speak. Just my being there was the crash of thunder after the lie, the reckoning everyone hoped would never arrive. As I reached the front of the aisle, the entire room seemed to freeze, everyone barely daring to breathe. I turned to face each person and offered a smile, signaling that it was time for the truth to come out. At the front of Holy Martyrs' Chapel, I stood underneath the same portrait they'd used to both mourn and try to bury me. When I turned toward the crowd, I saw dozens of eyes fixed on me, as if I truly had come back from the dead, and I wanted them to see. I cleared my throat, and my voice cut through the heavy silence. I announced that although I had heard reports of my death, I was there to set the record straight. A wave of shock went through us. Nobody budged, and though some people were holding up phones, it was as if we'd forgotten not only to press record, but even to blink. There had been no accident, no devastating car crash at all. Plane crash in Ireland. No funeral, just a closed casket because the remains couldn't be identified. I took out a file from inside my jacket, thick and embossed with official stamps, government seals, and dates from abroad. These were my passport entries, job papers, tax forms, rental agreements, evidence that I had been living, that I had held jobs, that I had kept going. The only thing I ever lost was them. I faced my parents, Gerard and Marjorie DeVries, and realized they had told everyone I was dead. They had forged the paperwork, submitted a death certificate, and once I was erased in the eyes of the law, everything was transferred to my younger sister, Sabrina DeVries. My savings, my estate, everything that belonged to me. I looked straight at Sabrina, who was immobilized, fists tight around her pearl necklace. Sabrina parted her lips to speak, but I cut her off. You don't get to relish the home you purchased with my inheritance. A low rumble began to grow, thunderous and restless, from behind me. Someone breathed, "She's holding evidence." Another person gasped, and I caught sight of a phone being lifted, its record light blinking. Someone was capturing everything. Perfect. Let the world witness this funeral for what it truly was. Not a goodbye, but a way to hide the truth. You didn't lose a daughter, I declared, fixing my gaze on my father, Gerard DeVries. You discarded her, and now you have to see her return. The fabrications were left in ruins, and I was the one who had set the whole thing ablaze. One final glance back, and I saw my father, Gerard DeVries, looking ashen, while my mother, Marjorie DeVries, still shook where she sat. My younger sister, Sabrina DeVries, utterly defeated, had nothing left. Even her pearls had slipped away. You laid me to rest to save yourselves, I said quietly, but I came back to make you face the truth. The yelling had ended, the falsehoods had ceased, and what remained was a hush, weighty and absolute. As I walked out, the bells of Holy Martyrs Chapel began to ring. How appropriate, a funeral toll, though this time it was not meant for me. Later I passed the paperwork to my attorney, Emrys Chandler, signed the final sheet, and watched as the death certificate was ripped apart, marking my official return among the living. Resurrection became official when an inquiry was launched into fraud, false statements, and embezzlement. Let them try to deceive anyone now. With steady composure, I explained that sometimes, to be reborn in my own world, I have to let my former self die in theirs, and this time I had no intention of returning for absolution, only to claim my own liberation.